The stars shimmered outside the window of the transport ship as Commander Elias Kane sat in silence. His armored gloves rested on his knees, and the reflection of the distant planet flickered in his visor. This was not the first alien world he had seen, but there was something different about this mission. This world had been torn apart by war, its cities scarred, its people exhausted, its leaders desperate. Humanity had been asked to send help, but the welcome would not be warm. The ship descended through the thick clouds, shaking slightly as the atmosphere pulled them in. Below, Kane saw flashes of fire, broken towers, and long scars in the ground left by orbital strikes. It reminded him of Earth's past wars, but this was worse. These people had been fighting not for decades, but for centuries. Beside him, his squad sat quietly. They were trained soldiers, humans hardened by years of service, but even they looked uneasy, not because of the danger they had faced worse, but because of where they were going. The royal palace of the alien monarch. The queen of this world had demanded to meet the human commander directly. No one knew what she wanted. The transport touched down in the courtyard of the palace. The gates loomed high, carved from stone and covered in symbols of victories from long ago. But even those gates were cracked now, patched with steel plates from the recent battles. The ramp lowered, and Kane stood first. His armor was heavy but familiar, painted in the dull gray of the United Earth Forces. His helmet sealed his face, the visor glowing faintly as it adjusted to the atmosphere. He stepped out slowly, with his squad following close behind. Alien guards lined the path. They were tall, broad-shouldered, their armor decorated with sharp ridges and bright colors. Their eyes followed the humans with open suspicion. Many of them gripped their weapons tightly, as if one wrong move would be enough to spark bloodshed. Kane moved with steady steps, his boots echoing against the stone floor of the courtyard. He kept his head high, his movements calm. He could feel the tension pressing down like a weight, but he would not show fear. Inside the palace, the air grew cooler, and the walls were covered in banners of gold and crimson. Alien servants bowed low as the queen's throne room came into view. At the far end sat the ruler herself. The alien queen rose from her throne as they entered. She was taller than Kane, her frame both elegant and imposing. Her gown shimmered like flowing silver, but her crown was heavy with sharp edges. Her eyes were piercing, glowing faintly with a hue that shifted between blue and green. Every step she took made her presence stronger, as though she carried the pride of her entire people with her. The humans stopped at the center of the chamber. Kane lifted a hand in a respectful gesture, but he did not kneel. He had been told not to. Humanity bowed to no throne, but they showed respect through action and honesty. The queen's voice echoed across the chamber, strong yet cold. So, this is the human commander, the one they say has led armies through fire and void, the one they claim is fearless. Kane's voice was calm and even. I am Commander Elias Kane of the United Earth Forces. We are here to help your people stand against the invaders. The queen's expression hardened. She circled slowly, her eyes studying his armor. Help, or conquer as you conquered your own world. Do not think we do not know what humans are. We have read the records. You are dangerous. The court behind her murmured in agreement. Alien nobles nodded, their jeweled robes shining under the torchlight. Kane did not argue. He only said, we are dangerous, yes, but we are also survivors. We know what it means to bleed and lose. That is why we came, to make sure you do not fall as others have. The queen stopped directly in front of him. Her gaze was sharp, almost challenging. Remove your helmet. The room grew silent. The alien guards tensed. Kane's squad shifted nervously, but Kane lifted his hand and unclasped the seals. The hiss of air echoed as he lifted the helmet and tucked it under his arm. For the first time, the aliens saw his face. It was not the face of a monster. It was not the face of a conqueror. It was a human face lined with scars marked by years of struggle, but calm, steady, and strangely gentle. His brown eyes held no cruelty, only quiet strength. The queen blinked. She had expected something terrifying, something alien in its own right. Instead, she saw someone fragile, even mortal. Yet there was something about that fragility that unsettled her. Humans wore their weakness openly and somehow turned it into strength. The court whispered again, but the tone had changed. Some looked confused, others curious. Kane met the queen's gaze without fear. I am not here to hide. If you wish to see the man beneath the armor, then see him. This is who I am. For a moment, the queen said nothing. Her stern expression wavered just slightly. Her eyes caught on the humanity of his face. She had seen countless warriors from countless species, but never one who carried both scars and humility with such weight. Finally, she spoke. "You are not what I expected, human." Cain bowed his head slightly. "Neither are you, Your Majesty." A ripple of surprise moved through the court. The guards stiffened, but the queen raised a hand, stopping them. Her lips curved, not into a smile, but into something softer than her usual cold mask. She turned back toward her throne, her voice echoing once more. "We will see if your actions are as honest as your face. For now you may remain in the palace. But know this, our trust is not given easily." Cain nodded. "I would not expect it to be." The queen returned to her seat, but her eyes lingered on him longer than she wished. Something in her chest felt unsettled, a question forming that she could not yet voice, and so the first meeting ended, not with war, not with threats, but with a single helmet removed and a fragile spark of something neither side could yet name. The palace was quiet after the first tense meeting. Commander Elias Cain had been given a room, though room was a generous term. The chamber was large, with high ceilings and polished stone floors, but it was almost empty. A single bed, a table, and a chair were the only furniture, yet the simplicity comforted him. It reminded him of home, and of the quiet moments between battles. Outside his window, he could see the devastated city stretching for miles. Fires burned in pockets, but here in the palace the chaos seemed distant. He wondered how the people lived beneath the shadows of war, how they survived day to day. Cain did not eat immediately. He preferred to wait, to understand his surroundings and to plan. Soon his squad returned from their own assignments in the palace. They had been observing the alien guards, mapping the palace and gathering information. Lieutenant Marin, his second in command, shook his head as she looked at the guards. "They don't trust us at all," she said. "Every step we take is watched. Every word we say is noted." Cain nodded. "They will watch, and they will judge. We cannot change that, but we can show them who we are through actions, not words." Marin frowned. "Do you think the queen trusts you?" Cain looked out at the city again, his gaze distant. "Not yet, but trust is earned, and we will earn it if we can." That evening, the queen summoned him again. This time she did not call him to the throne room, but to a long corridor lit by glowing crystals embedded in the walls. The corridor was lined with tapestries depicting battles of the past, victories and defeats, heroes and martyrs. Cain noticed that each figure in the tapestries looked strong and proud, yet weary. They had fought and survived, much like humanity had. The queen was waiting at the end of the corridor. Her posture was perfect, her expression unreadable, but Cain could sense the curiosity in her eyes, a question she was unwilling to ask aloud. "You have seen my face," she said, her voice quiet this time. "Yet I wonder, why do humans wear their weakness so openly?" Cain tilted his head slightly. "Weakness is not something we hide. It is something we accept. Only when we accept it can we find strength." The queen's eyes narrowed as though trying to measure the truth in his words. "And strength? Your species has strength, yes? You have conquered worlds, survived wars, yet you speak of weakness. Is it a trick?" Cain shook his head. "No trick. Humans fight because we must, not because we desire power. Our strength comes from protecting what matters, not from dominating others. It is not the power of a weapon that makes us strong. It is the choice to act even when fear is strong." The queen considered this silently. She had seen many species boast of power, but Cain spoke differently. There was no arrogance in his voice. He did not threaten. He did not demand respect, and yet somehow he commanded it. She decided to test him further. "Your people are said to be merciless in battle. You will destroy all who oppose you, and yet here you are in my palace pledging to help a species that is not your own. Why?" Cain looked her in the eyes, calm and unwavering. "Because suffering is the same in every language. A child's cry is the same whether it is human or alien. A city burned is pain, no matter who lives there. We do not help because we seek glory. We help because it is right." For the first time, the queen paused. No one in her court had ever spoken to her like this. Generals, advisors, and nobles had all whispered words of flattery or threats, but Cain spoke truth. A human who was neither conqueror nor coward, but something else entirely. Something unexpected. "You speak of morality as though it is simple," she said softly. "Yet your species has blood on its hands. Your worlds have known wars. How can you claim to be right?" Cain's lips pressed into a thin line. The morning sun filtered through the high windows of the alien palace, casting long shadows across the polished floors. Commander Elias Kane stood near the window, scanning the city below with a practiced eye. Smoke rose from distant buildings, evidence of skirmishes that had broken out during the night. The city had survived countless attacks, yet the scars of war were everywhere. Lieutenant Marin approached, her expression tense. Commander, reports just came in. Enemy warships are approaching orbit. They're coming faster than expected. Kane did not flinch. He placed a hand on the window ledge and studied the horizon. How many ships? He asked quietly. Too many to match with just our squad, sir, Marin said. And the palace defenses. They're failing in some sectors. Kane nodded slowly. Then we protect what we can. Civilians first, Marin blinked, surprised. Even if it means leaving some palace nobles at risk? Kane turned, his eyes firm. Every life is valuable. We do not choose who is more important. We protect everyone who cannot protect themselves. The words hung in the air. This was not the way the alien leaders would have acted. In their culture, power was everything. The strong survived, the weak were left behind. Kane's philosophy was alien to them, literally and figuratively, but it was also exactly what the people needed. The alarms began to ring, a harsh and shrill sound that echoed through the palace halls. Kane quickly organized his squad and issued orders. Marin, lead the teams to evacuate civilians to the lower chambers. I will coordinate palace defense here. Move fast, but keep calm. As the humans rushed through the palace corridors, they encountered alien soldiers who were unsure of their orders. Many were hesitant, not trusting humans to lead, yet desperate for guidance. Kane spoke firmly but calmly, giving clear instructions. Slowly, the alien soldiers began to follow. From the throne room, the queen watched the unfolding chaos. She had ordered her own personal guards to remain near her, expecting the humans to falter under pressure. Yet she saw something she had not anticipated. Kane moved not with panic but with purpose. His presence inspired those around him, even alien soldiers. The first wave of enemy ships fired upon the palace. Energy beams cut through the sky, striking towers and walls. The ground shook as explosions rocked the courtyard. Dust and debris filled the air, making it difficult to see. Kane raised his voice, commanding both humans and aliens alike. Focus. Protect the civilians first. Hold the gates! The alien soldiers hesitated at first, but the confidence in Kane's tone was contagious. Slowly, they began to act, forming defensive lines and using their advanced technology to shield the lower chambers. For the first time in weeks, the civilians began to feel hope. Amid the chaos, Kane noticed a small figure struggling in the crowd. A child, no more than 7 alien years old, trapped by fallen rubble. Without hesitation, Kane ran forward, lifting the debris and carrying the child to safety. The child's eyes were wide with fear, but Kane's calm presence reassured them. The queen, observing from above, felt a stirring she could not name. She had seen many warriors in her life, many who had claimed to protect their people. But this human, this fragile-looking man, risked himself for a child he had never met. She could not understand it, yet she could not look away. The battle raged for hours. Kane coordinated counterattacks, moving between human squads and alien defenders. His voice carried over the chaos, directing fire, organizing defenses, and ensuring civilians remained safe. He did not pause for rest, his focus unwavering. In one courtyard, a group of enemy soldiers broke through the defenses. Alien soldiers panicked, unsure how to respond. Kane did not hesitate. He charged forward, using both skill and strategy to push the attackers back. His human strength and agility, combined with his ability to inspire those around him, turned the tide in that small area. The queen watched, increasingly unsettled. She had been trained to respect power, to value cunning and strategy, but Kane's strength was different. It was not in the weapons he wielded or the armor he wore. It was in his courage, his clarity, and his refusal to abandon those who needed him. As the sun began to set, the enemy's attacks slowed. Kane's squads, bolstered by inspired alien soldiers, had held the palace. The civilians were safe, and the palace remained standing, though battered. Kane himself bore several minor injuries, cuts and bruises marking his face and arms. He ignored them, ensuring that the wounded among the civilians were treated first. Finally, Kane had a moment to breathe. He looked around at the exhausted defenders, both human and alien. Despite the fear, despite the chaos, they had survived. And more importantly, they had survived together. The Queen descended from her observation platform, her steps silent but deliberate. She approached Kane, her expression unreadable. "You risked yourself for children, for civilians," she said quietly. "Your people say humans are dangerous. Yet here you are, protecting lives instead of taking them." Kane met her gaze, calm and unwavering. "Because every life matters, Your Majesty. Strength is not measured by how many we defeat, but by how many we protect." The Queen looked away briefly. Struggling with the unfamiliar emotions his words stirred within her. She had seen leaders take advantage of fear, but Kane's approach was different. There was no threat in his words, only truth. And truth, she realized, had its own power. She spoke again, her voice softer this time. "Perhaps we have misunderstood your kind. Perhaps you are not the conquerors we feared." Kane inclined his head. "Humanity is not perfect. We have done wrong, but we also strive to do what is right. And we will fight to protect those who cannot fight for themselves." The Queen considered this. For centuries, her people had relied on power, cunning, and fear to maintain order. Kane's philosophy was foreign, yet it worked. He had led both humans and aliens through chaos without arrogance or cruelty. He had inspired respect not through force, but through action and character. Outside, the city slowly began to quiet. Fires were being extinguished and the wounded were being moved to safety. Kane's squad checked each sector, ensuring that no one had been left behind. His determination never wavered. The Queen watched from a distance, realizing that her judgment of humans had been incomplete. Kane had not only survived the attack, he had united species that had once distrusted each other. He had proven that humanity's strength was not just in their technology or weapons, but in their courage, compassion, and leadership. For the first time in her life, the Queen felt a quiet respect for a human. Not the kind she had expected to fear, but the kind that inspired hope and loyalty. And though she did not speak it aloud, she began to wonder if perhaps humanity had more to teach her people than she had ever imagined. Kane finally returned to the palace interior, exhausted but resolute. He took a moment to survey the aftermath of the battle. His armor was dented, his uniform torn in places, yet he stood tall. Around him, the alien soldiers were slowly regaining their composure, their confidence strengthened by his example. Marin approached, her expression both relieved and impressed. "Commander, you did it. The palace stands. The civilians are safe. The soldiers, they respect you." Kane shook his head slightly. "We did it together. Respect is earned through action, not words. And today we acted together." The Queen remained nearby, silent. She did not offer praise, but the subtle shift in her gaze spoke volumes. Kane had challenged her assumptions not with force, but with courage, clarity, and unwavering principles. He had shown her that humanity's greatest strength was not domination, but compassion, and that sometimes the smallest acts of bravery could change the course of history. As night fell, the palace settled into an uneasy calm. Kane knew the battle was only the beginning. Challenges lay ahead, but he also knew one undeniable truth. Humanity's strength was more than survival. It was the courage to act rightly, even in the face of overwhelming odds. And for the Queen, the human standing before her was no longer a stranger. He was someone who had earned her silent respect, someone whose presence had begun to change the way she viewed the universe and perhaps the way her people would survive in it. The palace had been damaged, but it still stood. Smoke rose from the city beyond its walls, curling toward the sky in slow, angry tendrils. Commander Elias Kane walked along the corridors, his boots echoing on the stone floors. The air smelled of dust, burnt metal, and fear, but he moved with calm focus. There was no time to rest yet, not when people still needed protection. Lieutenant Marin joined him, carrying a small data tablet. "Commander," she said, her voice tense, "intelligence reports say the enemy is regrouping. They'll strike again at night, stronger, faster, and they may try to breach the palace walls directly this time." Kane nodded. "Then we prepare. We do not wait for them. We take the fight to them, but carefully. Every civilian must remain safe. Every life is our priority." Marin glanced at him, admiration mixed with concern. "Even if it means putting ourselves in danger?" Kane met her gaze steadily. "Exactly. If we do not lead, others will panic. Fear spreads faster than weapons." The soldiers, human and alien alike, were stationed throughout the palace. Kane moved between them, offering guidance, reassurance, and orders. His presence was calm yet commanding. Alien soldiers who had doubted humans now looked to him for direction. Even the Queen's personal guards seemed hesitant, as though torn between faux protocol and... The sun had risen over the battered city, casting pale light across the palace courtyard. Commander Elias Kane stood among the soldiers, human and alien alike, as they tended to the wounded. The battle had ended, but the consequences lingered. Debris littered the streets, fire smoldered in the distance, and the quiet whispers of survivors reminded everyone of what had been lost. Kane's armor was dented, his uniform torn, and minor cuts marked his face and arms, yet he moved with unwavering calm. He helped guide wounded civilians to safe areas and ensured that food and water were distributed efficiently. His human squad worked tirelessly alongside alien defenders, following his every instruction. The Queen observed from her balcony. She had remained inside during the aftermath, reluctant to leave her chambers. She had watched Kane work, seen the way he interacted with both humans and aliens, and felt a mix of emotions she could not name. Pride, admiration, something more fragile like hope. Finally, she summoned Kane to her private chambers. He entered respectfully, bowing slightly in acknowledgement of her rank. She gestured for him to stand. "Commander Kane," she began, her voice quiet yet firm. "You have done more than protect this palace or its people. You have inspired them, not with fear or power, but with courage, compassion, and clarity. Why do you fight for those who are not your own?" Kane met her gaze steadily. "Because every life matters, Your Majesty. Power is temporary. Weapons are temporary, but the choice to act rightly lasts. We fight not for glory, but to protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is what defines us as humans." The Queen considered this silently. She had ruled for centuries, relying on strength, cunning, and tradition to maintain order. Her people had survived wars, invasions, and betrayals, yet they had always measured strength by dominance. Kane's approach was foreign, yet undeniable. He had earned respect not through fear but through action. "You risked your life for children, for civilians, even when danger surrounded you," she continued. "Your people say humans are dangerous, yet here you are, acting without cruelty or pride. How can one species be both strong and merciful?" Kane's expression remained calm. "Because strength is not the absence of mercy, Your Majesty. True strength comes from the ability to protect, to endure, and to act even when fear is strong. A species that cannot show compassion is weak, no matter how powerful their weapons or armies." The Queen's eyes softened, though she did not allow a smile. She had never met a warrior like Kane, someone who carried both power and humility, courage and care all at once. She realized that humans were unlike any species she had known. Their greatest strength was not physical, technological, or political. It was moral. It was the courage to choose right over convenience, compassion over self-interest. A guard entered the room quietly, bowing before the Queen. "Your Majesty, the wounded have been stabilized. Civilians are safe. The city's defenses are holding. Commander Kane's guidance has saved countless lives." The Queen nodded, her thoughts heavy. "I see that now," she said quietly. "And I must admit, I underestimated your kind." Kane inclined his head respectfully. "It is not unusual, Your Majesty, many do. But actions speak louder than words." For a long moment, silence filled the chamber. The Queen walked to the window, looking out over the city she had struggled to protect. Her people had suffered greatly, and yet here was a human who had shown them a path through chaos, without fear, without malice, only with steady courage and compassion. "I have spent centuries ruling through tradition, strength and fear," she said finally, her voice almost a whisper. "I believed that power alone preserved order. But today I have witnessed something different. You have shown me that strength can also be gentle, that courage can inspire without cruelty." Kane listened quietly, understanding the weight of her words. "Leadership is not measured by power, Your Majesty, but by how it is used. Those who protect rather than destroy leave a lasting mark, one that endures beyond battle and beyond fear." The Queen turned, her eyes meeting his. "And yet, can your philosophy truly change my people? They are proud, cautious, and often distrustful of outsiders. How can one human influence an entire civilization?" Kane's gaze was steady. "Not by being a human, by being an example. One act inspires another. One choice encourages another. Today we protected lives together. Tomorrow, your people may choose to act with courage and compassion because they saw it in us. Change begins with example, not command. The queen remained silent, contemplating the truth in his words. She had always valued order and hierarchy above all else. But Kane's actions had spoken louder than any decree or battle. He had united humans and aliens in the defense of life itself. She realized that leadership could be measured not by fear, but by the ability to inspire trust, loyalty, and hope. Finally, she spoke again. "I have made a decision, Commander Kane, one that may surprise you." Kane inclined his head, waiting. "I will open my people to alliance with yours," she said, her voice firm. "Not through fear, not through treaties enforced by threat, but through respect. I will instruct my generals and advisors to follow your example and act with the same courage and care you have demonstrated." Kane felt a weight lift from his shoulders. "Thank you, Your Majesty. That is the right choice. Together our species can accomplish far more than either could alone." The Queen studied him closely. "You fight not for power, yet you command it through your actions. That is rare. I have seen many leaders, many warriors, but none who carry both strength and humility as you do. You have earned my respect, Commander Kane, and it is not given lightly." Kane bowed slightly. "Respect is not the goal, Your Majesty. Action is. But I will not refuse your acknowledgement. It matters because it signifies understanding." Outside the chamber, alien soldiers and civilians alike moved with renewed purpose. Kane's example had inspired them. The battle had tested them, but it had also shown them what courage and unity could achieve. And as the Queen looked on, she realized that her people were beginning to see humans not as strangers, conquerors, or threats, but as allies, partners in survival and in hope. The Queen walked closer to Kane, her expression softening. "Your people have much to teach mine, Commander. Not about war or conquest or even technology, but about morality, courage, and leadership. Perhaps humanity is what we needed to remember how to be strong in the right way." Kane smiled faintly, though tiredness was etched on his face. "We learn from every species we meet, Your Majesty. But the lesson is the same. Courage and compassion can achieve what fear and force cannot." For a long moment, the two leaders regarded each other in silence. One ruled through tradition, wisdom, and centuries of experience. The other led through example, courage, and the unwavering conviction that protecting others was the truest measure of strength. The Queen finally nodded. "Then let it be so. We will follow your example, Commander Kane, and together, our peoples will stand stronger than any enemy, guided by courage and care rather than fear." Kane bowed once more, understanding the gravity of her words. This decision would change the course of history for her civilization. And though the challenges ahead were many, he knew that the path forward, founded on unity, respect, and moral strength, was worth every risk. As Kane left the chamber, he could feel the weight of responsibility settle comfortably on his shoulders. The Queen's decision had forged a new alliance, one based not on fear or obligation, but on mutual respect and shared values. The humans and aliens would face the future together, stronger, braver, and wiser because of the courage to do what was right, even when it was difficult. The city beyond the palace still bore scars, but inside its walls a new strength had emerged, and at the center of it all stood a human, scarred, weary, and quiet, whose actions had proven that courage and compassion were the greatest weapons of all. The city slowly awoke under the pale light of dawn, its ruins still smoldering but quiet. Commander Elias Kane walked through the palace corridors, his boots echoing softly on the stone floors. The past battles had left scars, but not only on buildings. The people, human and alien alike, bore the marks of fear, struggle, and survival. Yet there was also hope. A new understanding had begun to grow. Alien soldiers moved efficiently, following procedures with care, but now with a difference. They moved with unity. Inspired by the courage and example of Kane and his squad, civilians came out of their shelters cautiously, unsure of what tomorrow might bring, but reassured by the safety provided during the chaos. The palace had survived, and with it, the chance for a new beginning. Kane paused to check on a group of injured aliens being treated by human medics. One of them, a young soldier who had faltered during the battle, looked up at him. I did not think humans could care so much," the soldier admitted quietly. Kane knelt beside him. "Caring is not weakness. It is strength. Remember that for the next time you fight, not just for yourself but for others." The young soldier nodded, understanding shining in his eyes. Kane stood, taking a deep breath, and began to make his way to the Queen's chambers. She had requested a meeting to discuss the future. For weeks, Kane had anticipated this moment, unsure of what to expect, but certain that honesty and integrity would guide the conversation. When Kane entered, the Queen was waiting by the large window overlooking the city. "Herr Pos,"